It's the Brian Lehrer Show on WNYC. Good morning, everyone. Thanks to Bridget Bergen and Tiffany Hansen for filling in when I was out sick the last 3 shows last week. It's funny, these days you get a cough, a sore throat, some common respiratory symptoms. You take a COVID test a couple of times like I did, and it comes up negative, and you think, great, I don't have COVID. But then you remember, oh, but I'm still sick. And then you're not so happy, and you muddle along until you get better. But better now. So thanks to Bridget and Tiffany. And actually, so you don't think I've relapsed tomorrow, Bridget will be filling in tomorrow, too, as I take the day off in observance of Rosh Hashanah, as I do. But I'm glad I'm here today because it's a landmark day for one of our signature recurring series. Today we begin our election series, 30 issues in 30 days. Beginning right now and for the next 30 straight shows, we will explore an issue a day as part of our show in the New York City mayoral or New Jersey governor's race, some days both, including today, with analysis and opposing points of view to help you, the voters, make your choices. And some of the segments, as we mentioned this summer in previewing it, we'll experiment with an always, sometimes never approach, such as one I've mentioned we'll be doing on the touchy question, is anti-Zionism always, sometimes, or never anti-Semitism? That'll be one day next month. This week, on 30 Issues in 30 Days, we'll have a pro and con debate on freezing the rent in New York City's rent-stabilized apartments and the role of rent regulations and housing affordability overall. That'll be on Friday. We'll have a comparison of Mikey Sherrill and Jack Ciattarelli's positions on affordable housing policy in New Jersey and their positions on energy costs and climate policies in a separate segment. Also, a voter's guide to the housing-related ballot questions for New York City voters. There are several, and the candidates for mayor have different positions on them. That'll be tomorrow. And we begin right now with 30 Issues in 30 Days, issue number 1. Should New York and New Jersey be a sanctuary city and a sanctuary state? Sanctuary state and city policies restrict to varying degrees how much local governments, including law enforcement, can cooperate with federal immigration agents. Many of you know at least that much. It's a big, hot-button issue nationally. This year, as you know, with the Trump administration's deportation policies, the candidates in New York and New Jersey have a range of views with different positions on how it all affects public safety. You know, both sides argue their way is more protective, and the sides disagree on what their positions mean for due process under the law and the U.S. Constitution. Now, this was an issue in last night's televised New Jersey gubernatorial debate. As some of you probably saw, we'll play a clip of Republican Jack Ciattarelli and Democrat Mikey Sherrill from the debate during this segment. In New York, the current sanctuary city law being debated was enacted under Mayor Bill de Blasio, who, here's a clip, described and defended it earlier this year on News Nation.
The NYPD, for decades, believed it was wrong to ask documentation status because you would break the bond with the community. People would stop reporting crimes, stop coming forward as witnesses if they thought they might be deported. And the vast majority of undocumented people actually are fully law-abiding. So our laws say if someone commits a serious or violent crime, get them out of here.
Right.
You have to have a process.
Have to have due process. Former Mayor Bill de Blasio on News Nation. We'll hear clips of how some of the candidates for mayor this year disagree with that position as we launch our 30 Issues in 30 Days election series with issue number 1, should New York or New Jersey be a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state? We'll do this as an exchange of views between two advocates on different sides of the issue. And we'll fold in your calls and texts as we go. Amy Torres is executive director of the pro-immigrant New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice. She previously worked in policy advocacy for immigrants' rights in New York City, so she's got New York and Jersey experience. With a focus, her bio page says, on Asian American and Pacific Islander empowerment. She is second generation from a family that came from the Philippines. And Daniel DiMartino, a fellow at the Manhattan Institute, conservative think tank, and a PhD candidate in economics at Columbia. His research focuses on immigration. He is a member of the New Jersey State Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. He emigrated to the United States from Venezuela in 2016. He has written for media outlets including National Review, USA Today, The New York Post, and Fox News. On Fox, he published a piece this year called Sanctuary City Democrats Must Choose Between Americans and Illegal Immigrants. Amy Torres, Daniel DiMartino, thanks for engaging and welcome to WNYC for our 30 Issues in 30 Days segment on being a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state. Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Brian. Good morning.
I want to give you each a few minutes at the start because we have plenty of time, to lay out your own descriptions of what sanctuary city laws are generally and what their actual effects are, good, bad, or mixed. Then we'll start to get specific about New York and New Jersey sanctuary policies and the candidates' competing views. Amy Torres, since you advocate more or less for the policies as they are, Daniel wants to lessen them, why don't you go first and give us your basic take? You heard the beginning of a description by former Mayor de Blasio in the clip. Maybe you want to pick it up from there.
Sure. So I think one of the best ways to understand the way that federal immigration enforcement works is by maybe taking a proximal example to another federal agency. So let's take, by comparison, ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service. Both of these federal agencies wear two kinds of hats, one for civil or administrative enforcement and the other for criminal enforcement. The hat that they put on depends on the type of violation that occurs. So if I make a mistake on my taxes or if I file them late, those are not criminal violations. I might face some consequences like fines, penalties, and interest, but I won't face any consequences that are carceral. However, if there are more serious things that demonstrate larger schemes or intent that are not accidental, like document fraud, falsifying records, intentionally evading taxes by hiding income, that is a felony where the IRS would wear its criminal enforcement hat. But I think in the time since ICE has been a federal agency, we have more often seen it as a criminal enforcement agency when really it's by and large a civil and administrative one. If someone oversees a visa, that's not a crime. It's a civil violation. If they're working without authorization, that's also an administrative violation. But over time, we've seen more and more of what were once civil and administrative violations becoming criminalized and becoming conflated with serious crimes like human trafficking, federal document fraud, alien smuggling, right? These are much, much more serious than working without authorization. And I think what we see with ICE as opposed to the IRS is that they're far more often wearing the criminal enforcement hat, even when there's no crime taking place. So sanctuary cities and sanctuary state policies are really acknowledging that there are major problems with the federal immigration system. It's been decades since we have had a coherent and comprehensive immigration system. And so we see cities, municipalities, and states taking this eye towards saying, look, the federal government has not had it figured out on immigration. The federal government must be extraordinarily clear in what our responsibilities are to cooperate before we will begin working with them, right? Essentially what it's saying is that we can't have federal agencies conflate things without demonstrating that there's a constitutional need for cooperation. So that's why, even though we have sanctuary policies in places like New York City or in places like the 4 cities in New Jersey that have also been sued by the Justice Department, Paterson, Newark, Jersey City, Hoboken, these cities are not refusing to cooperate. What they're saying is, show us the paperwork that we are required to cooperate. Essentially, sanctuary policies are glorified know your rights programs. If ICE officers say, show me these papers, you have a right to say, show me yours first.
Thank you.
Since
Daniel DiMartino,
may I
now
jump
it's,
in?
yeah, so, and go ahead and take a few minutes, as we gave Amy, to give us your view of what sanctuary city laws are generally and what their actual effects are, good or bad or mixed.
Amy did not define what the sanctuary city policy is, as it is legally stated in the state of New Jersey and in New York City and in New York as a whole. What it actually does is it prohibits law enforcement from honoring ICE detainers for somebody who is arrested of a crime, for example. It also prohibits them from asking immigration status, all of that. But the important part, I think, that people who are hearing us should understand is that if somebody is arrested for murder in the state of New Jersey, for rape, for robbery, for drunk driving, police will not honor ICE detainers beyond a certain amount of hours. It will release the criminal instead of allowing them to be deported. And this has allowed many repeat criminals to go free in the state. This is not about protecting even regular immigrants who are undocumented. For example, Raul Luna Perez is a man who in the state of New Jersey has been arrested multiple times for drunk driving until he killed someone. And after he killed this woman and her daughter, he was again released instead of letting ICE go after him. So this is the problem with sanctuary cities, that if their advocates were really saying, we want to protect illegal immigrants who have not committed any other crime other than coming into the country illegally, right? Then that would be fine. We're not going to have police ask immigration status in traffic stops because of a parking ticket or something like that, right? Or stop you randomly because you look like an illegal immigrant. Of course, that would be all debatable. That would be fine. That's well-meaning. But to say that when somebody is arrested for murder, for rape, for drunk driving, for robbery, for shoplifting, that their immigration status should not render them immediately deported, that is the problem I have with sanctuary city policies.
Amy, you want to respond?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a real fundamental piece missing of your definition, Daniel, which is that in the United States, you are innocent until proven guilty. And being arrested, being charged, does not make you a criminal. After conviction, that may be the case. But the state of play as it is right now is that...
Let's go one at a time in this conversation. We have plenty of time. Amy, go ahead and finish.
Thank you, Brian. And, I apologize with being deliberate here, but I really think that the distinctions are important because we see the federal government weaponizing these ideas around criminality and public safety to justify the overreach of some of their agencies. So, as I was saying, look, in the United States, you are innocent until proven guilty, right? Being arrested is not enough to prove conviction.
Okay.
And what we're seeing, the state of play, is that there is enormous amounts of racial profiling and mass arrest of people simply for being likely to be associated with public safety threats or national security threats. And these people are being detained in immigration jails, not through the criminal legal system. They're being detained in immigration jails and deported before they ever see their day in court.
Let's get a response. Daniel, go ahead.
You think, I just think this is being disingenuous about the issue. The issue at hand is also about people who are convicted. This individual I spoke about was convicted twice before of DUI. So I'll ask you this very simple question, Amy. Do you think illegal immigrants who are convicted of DUI or other crimes should be deported after conviction?
But Daniel, in your definition of sanctuary cities, you said this is about criminals, and then you went on to describe people with arrest and charges. That's simply not what's happening. Let me just ask you about people who are convicted. Do you think people convicted of a crime such as DUI should be deported from the U.S. if they're here illegally? I think in the United States we have a criminal legal system that does enforce laws.
They will go to prison, but do you think they should be deported after they do their prison term?
No, I don't. I don't believe in a system of double punishment. I think that if someone has
So you don't
completed
think
their
that
sentence,
people who commit
if
murder
someone
in the
has
United
served
States should be
their
deported?
debt to society, that they should not be subject to double punishment simply because
Okay,
of
so
the status of
So
their
let-
visa or
just
their.
making sure I understand your position. You think that an illegal immigrant who rapes someone after he does his prison time, let's say 10 years, whatever, he should not be deported from the United States because that would be double punishment, you say?
I don't understand what the administrative enforcement of immigration law has to do with the criminal legal system. I think
Okay.
that's a
I'm just
conflation
asking.
that
So
I'm just
that's
asking.
so. I
if
think
you
we've
believe-
I think
if
we've
you believe in
clarified.
immigration law at all, because what it
Amy's
seems
answer
that
is a no, even after conviction. Daniel, you have a thought about
I
that?
think that what she means is that nobody should ever be deported for any reason from the United States because that would be double punishment, even if they're rapists or murderers. And that sounds insane to me.
Is
Well, I
that
think
how you would
suggesting
put
that-
Amy? Is that a mischaracterization of your position? And by the way, that's
think
not
it's-
what the sanctuary city laws in New York and New Jersey say. I don't think they go as far as you're
It is
apparently going.
absolutely-
They
But go
actually,
ahead.
Yeah, it is
they actually do,
So,
Brian,
Daniel,
because
let me
police
respond
does not
to you,
cooperate.
All right, again, one at a time. Daniel will let you make that argument, but Amy, just finish your point.
So, Daniel, I'd love to respond to you. And Brian, you're absolutely right. This is not what the sanctuary policies in New York City nor in across the state of New Jersey say. So, let's get back to the topic at hand.
But you're saying what
but I
Daniel
do
asked
think
you,
it
and
is
I
a
want you to answer his question. What he asked you is, it sounds, based on your previous answer, like you don't believe in deporting people here illegally under any circumstances. True or false?
I think that we have enough systems in place to enforce criminal law, right? And if it is a criminal law, it should be prosecuted by those bodies.
Okay,
But
so
I think it's also an
who should be
oversimplification, Brian,
and
and
who
a
should be deported?
mischaracterization.
Who should be deported, if anyone ever, in your opinion?
Well, the laws in New York City and in New Jersey say, in serious enough instances, that they allow cooperation with the federal government for the purpose of detention and deportation. I'm not the mayor of New York City, nor am I
Right.
running for governor of New Jersey,
Right.
so my personal opinion is
But
maybe
you would repeal
differing.
even
But if we're
those.
here to talk about the issue in the
Yes.
law, Brian, I think it's a gross oversimplification to say that every person who has been in contact, every person who has had contact with the immigration system is a rapist and a murderer. That's an extremely
Right. Well, I don't think
dangerous
he said. I
Well,
don't
I
think he
didn't
said
say
it. He didn't say every person. But Daniel, you're arguing that New York and New Jersey's sanctuary city laws, which honestly look different to me on paper than I think what you're going to allege, go as far as Amy goes. Make your argument.
Yes. So, for example, when somebody is released from prison in New York City, the prison is not required to notify ICE and hold them before they release them so that ICE picks them up and deports them. That is a big problem because most crimes are committed by repeat offenders. So if you know somebody has committed a crime, has been sentenced, did his time in prison, and then he's not deported, he's more likely to commit a crime again. And the reality is that if you were in this country illegally and then you committed a crime, you have no business being in the United States. And that is not controversial. This is something that well over 80% of Americans agree with. The majority of people in every state agree with, because it's not about protecting people who just came here for a better life and are here illegally. This is important. We're just talking about people who committed a crime and were convicted. Now, regarding the issue of arrest, right, before people are convicted, I'm telling you that the law as it is right now, even if you're convicted,
Let me jump in. Let me just stay with convicted for a minute. I'm reading from the New Jersey government state website, and there's more here that we'll get into. But on what it calls the Immigrant Trust Directive, which is kind of their sanctuary policy, it says, quote, nothing in the directive suggested that New Jersey provides sanctuary to individuals who commit crimes in the state. That's the state's own language. So do you accept that?
Right. And Brian,
wait,
I think,
Daniel, the question is to Daniel. Hang on. The question is to Daniel. Go ahead.
No, because what the directive actually does is that it prohibits law enforcement from going the extra mile, meaning if you have somebody who has been convicted of a crime and is going to be released from prison or is after their trial, they will not hold them for ICE. That's the problem. You need to hold them for ICE because ICE is not there. We don't have infinite ICE agents.
Daniel, it's not the directive that prohibits the Bureau of Prisons or the Department of Jails from doing that. It's the Fourth Amendment.
The Fourth Amendment has nothing to do with. No, of course not. They are allowed to hold them an extra time because they're here illegally in order for ICE to pick them up. That's how the state of Texas does it. That's how the state of Florida. That's how most Republican states do it.
I think most places don't want to mimic what the state of Texas does in its immigration policy.
But you just said that it's unconstitutional. I'm just telling you it's not unconstitutional because half of the country does it.
Floating razor wire across rivers, I think, when it comes to talking about majority opinion, I think most people don't
acknowledging that different states do things differently.
The state of Texas would have been sued.
Let me jump back in and back up one step on the constitutional or due process issue and bring in what many people have heard about, the Laken-Riley Act, named for the 22-year-old nursing student from Georgia who was murdered last year by an undocumented immigrant. The law in her honor, Laken-Riley Act, was passed by Congress and signed by President Trump this year. Relevant to the Jersey race, Mikey Sherrill voted no on the Laken-Riley Act as a member of the House. Jack Ciattarelli supports it, but of course he's not a member of Congress, so he didn't get a vote. My understanding about the central debate over this law is that it allows the detention for deportation of people merely accused of crimes, not convicted. Amy raised this earlier. Daniel, do you think people should be deported or deportable merely on the accusation of a crime, even a serious crime, rather than convicted when they're convicted, if they're convicted, because obviously people are innocent until proven guilty?
Well, I think it's important to say that it's not that you're just accused by someone, it's that you're charged by a jury.
Charged.
For theft.
Well, that's my meaning.
Yes, and I do support that. I think that people who are here already illegally and then are arrested and charged, not just arrested, but also charged with theft, with assault of a police officer, or killing someone, drunk driving, they should be deported from the United States.
You're an immigrant. What if, and you're not undocumented, I don't believe, but if you were charged with a crime and you didn't do it and they were able to deport you for it, would that be right?
Well, I think it would be wrong if I didn't do it.
Under your definition,
before your trial, Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah. So number one, the issue here is to hold and detain them without a bond. Not that they're deported before trial. Actually, they actually go to trial. But that's what's happening. That's what the law does. The Laken-Riley Act is only about holding you so that you're not released on parole.
Okay,
because the problem is that because of other policies at the state level,
charges are dropped, or people
can I finish just this
point? Yes. Let Daniel finish, and if I mischaracterized, I can stand corrected on whether it's just charged. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the issue today is that many states, especially here in New Jersey and in New York, many criminals are released on parole pending trial. This is for many reasons. Number one, laws since 2020 that have changed and allowed people to be released pre-trial that really shouldn't be because there are risks to the community, or because there's lack of detention space.
These are bail reform arguments.
One at a time.
Yes, I'm talking about bail reform. And so that was a big problem. And that allowed many legal immigrants to then get away with murder. What the Laken-Riley does is you have to hold them until trial.
Okay. Amy, go ahead.
I really take issue with that allows many immigrants to commit murder. Violent crimes are by and large committed by U.S.-born citizens. And yes, and Laken-Riley's case is one of countless others in which many other innocent people have been indefinitely detained and deported with permanent consequences, even if their charges led to a dismissal, even if their charges were declined to be prosecuted, or even if they led to an acquittal. And so, sure, we can talk about Laken-Riley as one single case, but if you look at the statistics, we are applying an extremely heavy hand because of one outlier incident to every person in the United States who could be racially profiled as an immigrant or charged for some sort of criminal crime that they're not even proved guilty of.
Now, I'm going to just say that I think we've established your differences on that. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to get specifically into some of the statements and positions of the candidates, since we're doing this in the context of an election series, both in the New Jersey governor's race and the New York mayoral race. It's issue number 1 in our 30 Issues in 30 Days election series. Should New York or New Jersey be a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state? Stay with us. Brian Lehrer on WNYC in issue number 1 in our election series, 30 Issues in 30 Days, 30 straight shows that include debates or analysis of issues in the New York City mayoral and New Jersey governor's race. Issue number 1, should New York or New Jersey be a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state? It's an exchange of views between Amy Torres, executive director of the pro-immigrant New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, and Daniel Martino, fellow at the conservative Manhattan Institute think tank. And we'll fold in some of your calls and texts as we go. Questions or brief arguments of your own, 212-433 WNYC, 212-433-9692. And we've talked so far in a very spirited debate about sanctuary city laws generally and the Lake and Riley Act at the federal level in particular. Now let's get more specifically into the sanctuary city debate in the New York City mayoral race per se, than the New Jersey governor's race per se. In the city, Mayor Adams prefers an older, more limited version of sanctuary policy than the one in effect now that he inherited from the Bill de Blasio administration. Zohran Mamdani supports the de Blasio version. A New York Times article on the topic last year said, Mr. Adams, arguing that the de Blasio-era laws were an overreach, has said the city should be able to turn over immigrants who have been accused of crimes, even if they have not been convicted. So lining up with one side of what we heard before the break, it says, Adams even suggested that constitutional due process rights should not apply to people who entered the country illegally and have committed crimes. Now, here's a clip of Adams on Fox 5's Good Day New York, citing the particular case of a man arrested this summer, charged with shooting an off-duty Customs and Border Patrol agent in the face in Washington Heights. The suspect was reportedly in the United States illegally, despite having been ordered deported back to the Dominican Republic 2 years ago. Here's the mayor.
If someone commits a violent act like that, and these guys were repeated offenders, we should be able to coordinate with the federal authorities to address those situations.
Mayor Adams also said the 21-year-old suspect had prior arrests for assault and violating an order of protection and was already wanted for a robbery last December and a stabbing in January. Amy, according to the mayor, even in a case like that, the sanctuary city law prevents immigration authorities from getting involved. Is that the law in New York as you understand it? And if so, should it be? Because de Blasio says 170 serious crimes are exempt from sanctuary city protections. One would think shooting someone in the face is on that list, but Mayor Adams in the clip makes it sound like it's not. What's your understanding of the law?
Yeah, I mean, I think sadly, Mayor Adams is not known for his precision, right? And the truth is that the New York City sanctuary laws and the sanctuary laws that are in New Jersey cities and in the Immigrant Trust Directive do provide pretty wide carve-outs that allow local and state PD to work with the federal government. But again, Brian, I think this case that Mayor Adams highlights is really such an outlier. Public safety is not improved by additional coordination with the federal government. If anything, it's eroded. It prevents immigrant victims of violence from coming forward. It encourages bad actor landlords to take advantage of their tenants. It allows disreputable employers to get away with dangerous work conditions and wage theft. And even outside of those instances where people are unable to stand up for their rights, people with minor illnesses and injury are often avoiding care at the stage when they're most likely to be able to be healed and recovered, and instead are relying on costly emergency care. I think another issue that we hear the mayor about often is the budget. And the truth is that the NYPD makes up an extraordinary part of the New York City budget. And if we were to allow the federal government to suddenly deputize them to do the role of federal immigration enforcement, doesn't that mean less resources for everyone else on the ground and much more costly resources for those few that remain?
Daniel, I want to go back in this respect to the de Blasio clip that we played at the beginning. Part of that quote was an argument for why Sanctuary City makes the city safer. He says it was wrong to ask documentation status because you would break the bond with the community. People would stop reporting crimes, stop coming forward as witnesses if they thought they're going to be deported. And he also said the vast majority of undocumented people are fully law-abiding. So what about that public safety concern that people who are undocumented would fear reporting crimes or being witnesses in criminal cases if they think they're at risk of being reported?
It is the opposite. First, the Sanctuary City reform that I support, I don't think they should inquire the status of the victim. The problem is that the city protects the accused, the criminal, not the reporter. Number two, actually, illegal immigrants benefit tremendously from reporting crimes because there is a visa that legalizes their status if they're victims of crime and cooperate with law enforcement. So actually, many immigrants obtain status this way. And if anything, they would benefit tremendously from reporting. So this is a big myth.
And the Adams versus de Blasio version of Sanctuary City, it sounds, Daniel, like perhaps you oppose even the pre-de Blasio version, which goes back, or various versions go all the way back to Edge Koch. Rudy Giuliani supported a version of Sanctuary City when he was mayor. How far would you roll back the previous versions of New York City Sanctuary?
I just think that when somebody is arrested for a crime that they clearly committed, for example, somebody is caught in the act robbing a CVS. For example, somebody is arrested for drunk driving or domestic violence, something that is obvious that was just done. I think that if you're in the country legally, it's a no-brainer to tell ICE and deport them. I also think it's a no-brainer that every time an illegal immigrant who is released from prison is held so that ICE can deport them. After somebody is convicted, if ICE wants to deport him also, let them do it. This is not about protecting people who are here just working or stopping them and asking them their immigration status randomly. I'm not supportive of that. I'm supportive of people who are here committing crimes being deported so that they don't keep committing crimes, which is the problem with Jose Ibarra, who killed Laken Riley. It's the problem with Raul Luna Perez, who killed a mother and a daughter in a drunk driving incident. It's the problem with so many repeat criminals.
Now, let me try to clarify.
Brian,
I want to continue to try to clarify some of the positions of the candidates. I think we have a sense of Mamdani and Adams. Andrew Cuomo, from what I can find, is actually on the same page as Mamdani on this, and I want one of you to correct me if that's wrong, but I only find references to him as a candidate defending the idea of Sanctuary City from any attempt that President Trump might make to go after it. So do either of you think that's accurate or inaccurate? Not much difference between Cuomo and Mamdani on this. It's only Adams and Republican Curtis Sliwa, who we'll get to, are different from them. Amy, go ahead.
I think candidate Cuomo has been clearer than Adams in what he would defend as the city's sanctuary policies. But again, Brian, I think to think about how these policies are defined across administrations.
I'm sorry, you said clearer than Adams. Do you mean that he's, are you characterizing him?
In his defense of the de Blasio definition of sanctuary
policy.
policy.
So maybe no daylight between Cuomo and Mamdani on this particular question.
Well, I think these laws don't stand alone, right? They stand alongside other wraparound services like immigration legal services, making sure that the city has robust language access implementation so that when people do seek help, that they're able to actually get it in a language that they speak, right? And feel assured and confident in coming forward. But Brian, before we continue on to what the opposition party may be saying or what other candidates may be saying, I just want to say that even as we're comparing definitions of sanctuary policy across mayoral administrations, we really have to take a look at just how much has changed between federal administrations. The protection programs that Daniel mentioned, U and T visas, Violence Against Women Act, these were rescinded. U and T visas were ICE policy that was rescinded in January of this year. So policies that once called on agents to avoid detaining and seeking to remove immigrants that had been victims of crime are no longer the law of the land. And the truth is that people are being actively discouraged from coming forward, and that the Lake and Riley Act conflates serious and violent crimes like murder, like assault, as being the same as shoplifting. So if I am someone
you
who
don't support
looks like an immigrant,
one at a time, Amy, go ahead.
If I look like someone who might be an immigrant in a rapidly gentrifying neighborhood, and if that shopkeeper on the corner were to accuse me based on my profile or based on their personal views of shoplifting, under the Lake and Riley Act, I can now be detained and deported.
All right, very briefly, Daniel, because I don't want to get hang on. I don't want to get bogged down on the Lake and Riley Act because we're really doing this in the context of the mayor. But very briefly.
But I think that first, she's wrong about it. You have to be charged, not accused by a shopkeeper. Second, it's not like America is this rabidly anti-immigrant country where everybody's going to be accused because of the way they look. And third, we have a problem of shoplifting gangs. And I think that you are using this story of racial profiling as an excuse to not tell your real opinion, which is that if somebody's a shoplifter and is here illegally, even if they're convicted, you don't think they should be deported. And that's what you think. I don't.
Daniel, do you have anything to add to what we said about Andrew Cuomo before? Do you?
I think you described him accurately.
Okay.
I would say that Mamdani does want to go further, and he probably will try to stop federal law enforcement with regards to immigration in the city.
Right. Now, the Curtis Sliwa position, from what I can see, is calling for a citywide referendum on the issue. Let the voters decide if a sanctuary city policy should remain. Sliwa says that very simply in this clip.
I will live with the decision that the people of New York City make as to whether we should stay a sanctuary city or not.
So Sliwa also said, quote, Eric Adams twice had the chance to let New Yorkers decide on sanctuary city laws through the ballot, and twice he refused. As mayor, I will convene a charter revision commission and put real issues like sanctuary city laws and whether Rikers should be closed before the people, unquote, from Curtis Sliwa. I'm curious if either of you like or don't like that idea of a citywide ballot question on this issue. Daniel, do you?
I don't think that everything should be up for referendum. If he wants to do that, that's fine. I just think that the policy is bad and allows criminals to stay here.
Amy?
I think, the willingness to go through a charter referendum commission, we see a lot of people who oppose pro-immigrant policies make arguments about limited resources, right, and the drain on public services. Something like a ballot initiative sounds like something that would be fairly costly, and I don't think gets us any closer to the solutions that we're all talking about.
We're going to take another break, and then we're going to play a clip from last night's gubernatorial debate in New Jersey. We will hear both Democratic candidate Mikey Sherrill and Republican candidate Jack Ciattarelli on this question of sanctuary state, and continue with our two guests. Stay with us. Brian Lehrer on WNYC. It's our election series, 30 issues in 30 days. Issue number 1, should New York or New Jersey be a sanctuary city or sanctuary state? an exchange of views between Amy Torres, Executive Director of the Pro-Immigrant New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, and Daniel Martino, Fellow at the conservative Manhattan Institute think tank. Let's go on to New Jersey in particular. The Jersey debate focuses largely on what's known as the Immigrant Trust Directive, which is often seen as a sanctuary state policy by another name. We'll compare the two candidates, Cheryl and Chittarelli, on this. They had a televised debate last night, and this came up. We'll play an exchange in just a second. But first, since not everyone knows this term, Immigrant Trust Directive, let me read a little more from the state's website on that. I mentioned one little provision earlier, and then we'll invite our guests to react to the clip that we'll also play. But this is from the state's own website. It says how the Immigrant Trust Directive changes law enforcement practices. And one of the ways is New Jersey's police officers cannot stop, question, arrest, search, or detain any individual based solely on actual or suspected immigration status. The police officers cannot ask the immigration status of any individual unless doing so is necessary to the ongoing investigation of a serious offense and relevant to the offense under investigation. The officers cannot participate in ICE's civil immigration enforcement operations. Also, New Jersey's correctional officers cannot allow ICE to interview individuals detained on criminal charges unless the detainee is advised of his or her right to a lawyer and signs a written consent form. Then the state website lists some ways under this section how the Immigrant Trust Directive doesn't change law enforcement practices. So, for example, it says nothing in the directive suggested that New Jersey provides sanctuary to individuals who commit crimes in the state. I assume that means convicted. Nothing in the directive limited the ability of law enforcement officers to enforce state criminal law, and nothing in the directive stopped officers from assisting federal immigration authorities in response to exigent circumstances, whatever exigent circumstances means. So with that as background, and there's more on that webpage, but I read some relevant sections of the New Jersey State website on the Immigrant Trust Directives. So in last night's debate, the candidates were asked if they support the Immigrant Trust Directive. And here's 1 minute of their exchange, beginning with Mikey Sherrill.
Now, my opponent supports policies where people who are here legally can be detained, rolling back rights for American citizens, separating children and parents. I'm going to make sure people here in this state are safe and follow the law.
Congresswoman, can you clarify? Is that a yes or no on would you continue the Immigrant Trust Directive?
What I'm going to do is make sure we're following the law and the Constitution. So that'll include due process rights and the Constitution.
Check Chittarelli.
I don't think she answered your question. Executive order number 1 on day 1, we're getting rid of the Immigrant Trust Directive here in New Jersey. I said this back in 2021. I'll say it here again. I've said it every single day I'm out on the campaign trail. I believe the Immigrant Trust Directive, us having sanctuary cities, us being a sanctuary state, only encourages illegal immigration and restricts our local law enforcement in a number of different ways.
All right, so that debate last night before an audience of 1,600 people at Rider University and hosted by the New Jersey Globe. And you heard some of that exchange there. Politico describes the exchange this morning as Cheryl refused to say whether she would keep in place the Immigrant Trust Directive, and Chittarelli says that was a layup for Chittarelli, who wants to get rid of it. Cheryl, even when pressed for a yes or no answer, wouldn't budge. So, Amy, you can go first on this. How do you understand Mikey Sherrill's position? You work with a New Jersey immigration advocacy group. Politico is describing her position as unclear, or not saying whether or not she would repeal the Immigrant Trust Directive. Chittarelli would. How do you understand Mikey Sherrill's position?
I'm not sure that I fully understand based on her delivery last night, but I hear elements there that harken back to why laws like the Immigrant Trust Directive are so important, right? Allowing for due process. the federal government cannot just commandeer states and deputize their state and local law enforcement. The anti-commandeering doctrine says that the federal government can't force us to carry out federal programs. And so by saying, following due process, following the law, it's all of these things that we've been talking about this morning, about making sure that people are innocent until proven guilty, that they're going through the full process that they deserve, that we're not sidestepping the criminal legal system just to accelerate the number of detentions and deportations. I think Jack Ciattarelli has been enormously clear and has said time and again what his plans for the Immigrant Trust Directive are. I'm hoping that within, the days that we have before the election, that we get more clarity from Cheryl as a candidate to really understand what's at stake. I think this is something that a candidate for New Jersey governor should be so comfortable articulating. When people talk about immigration states, they often think, oh, that's an Arizona issue or Texas or Florida or California. But New Jersey is actually second in the nation for a proportion to immigrants to total population. Nearly 1 in 4 New Jerseyans is an immigrant, and over 40% of our kids come from immigrant households. So I really think voters are hungry for and expecting clear answers on something that's affecting nearly a quarter of the state.
Daniel, you want to take a shot at that, specifically Cheryl versus Ciattarelli?
Well, I think it's important to understand that Amy has talked a lot about enforcing the law and, following due process. The federal immigration law is also a law. If people have a final order of removal, that should be honored. And I think that we need to be interested in enforcing that. There's over 1.6 million people in the United States that have already had due process and have a final order of removal. Many of them commit crimes and then are arrested. And the New Jersey Immigrant Directive does not allow for somebody who has been arrested, who has been even convicted of a minor crime, who has an order of removal, to be held so that they can be deported by ICE. And I think that they should be. So, I am totally supportive of repealing the directive. The directive actually limits local law enforcement because it's not that without it, the local police would be forced to hold immigrants or do anything like that. They would simply have the flexibility to do so if they believe it's in the public interest. It's different from, for example, what Texas or Florida have done, which is actually requiring local law enforcement to cooperate with the federal government. What the Immigrant Trust Directive in New Jersey does is prohibit law enforcement at the local level from cooperating with the federal government.
And Brian, that's just simply inaccurate in terms of both what the directive does and what federal policy is. We're both seeing federal officers sidestep their own policies to expedite detentions and deportations, and the directive itself does not say that it would prevent those things from happening. This is about allowing
I can read it from you right now.
One at a time. Amy, finish. Go ahead.
This is about allowing states and localities to rebuke the federal government, and that they are asking for additional information before they are required to cooperate. This is not about giving individual officers the discretion to enforce federal immigration law. I mean, think about how much has changed since January. Are we expecting every state and local police officer to be an expert on federal immigration policy? That seems ridiculous. And when we look at cities across the nation, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Chicago, our cities have been militarized. Imagine if both the military, state, and local law enforcement are being used
Daniel,
to
briefly,
enact the federal government's
the Immigrant Trust Directive says, and I will read paragraph B, limitations on assisting federal immigration authorities in enforcing federal civil immigration law. No state, county, or local law enforcement agency or official shall provide the following types of assistance to federal immigration authorities when the sole purpose of that assistance is to enforce federal immigration law. For example, participating in civil immigration enforcement operations, providing access to any state, county, or local law enforcement equipment, office space, database, providing notice of a detained individual's upcoming release from custody. So when somebody's
one at a time, Daniel,
when somebody is going to be released from prison, they prohibit local law enforcement in New Jersey from telling ICE so that they can be deported. That is what the directive does.
Let me get a couple of phone calls in here. And we're going to start on the New Jersey side with Maria in Oakland. You're on WNYC. Hello, Maria.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Yes, I'm calling in because I'm a community organizer with Make the Road New Jersey. And in the state, we're seeing ICE raids and arrests, and it's really creating fear. Parents are scared to send their kids to school. They're scared to go to court to report domestic violence cases, to fight evictions, or even to take their kids to the medical clinic. And I've spoken with families who skip doctor's visits as well, and they're terrified because their information could end up in ICE's hands. And what makes it worse is that ICE is about to get the new database from the tech giant Palantir, and that's going to let them track, detain, and deport people in real time, and pulling data from license plates and IRS records and other information.
No,
and that's why I believe,
Go ahead, you can finish.
Yes, the only thing I wanted to say is that New Jersey needs to pass the Immigrant Trust Act. This will ensure that over 1 million immigrants,
If I understand Daniel's position correctly, he wants those kinds of routine contacts with state functions that you were describing still protected, just not people who are accused of serious crimes or convicted.
Correct.
Maria, your response to that?
I think it's very important to pass the Immigrant Trust Act because this is going to allow millions of immigrants in our state.
This is just a community.
Hang on, one at a time. Daniel, one at a time. Let the caller finish. Maria, go ahead.
Yeah, this is just ensuring that families live without fear and make sure that they can still access the basic services they need. And just like in New Jersey, New York is also moving forward to pass the similar legislation, the New York for All Act. So that's why it's important to bring this up.
Can I ask Maria a question, Brian?
Please.
Maria, do you think somebody who has been convicted of murder should be deported from the United States if they're here illegally?
I think they need to go through, they need to be charged, and they need to
I said convicted.
That's what I believe.
I said convicted. Do you think somebody who has been convicted of murder should be deported from the United States?
Well, I want to make sure that, there's many people who are wrongly convicted.
So I see. So you don't. Again, so this is just another far-left activist who does not believe in any immigration enforcement, even for killers.
Maria, you get a response
We're talking about the issue of the policies that are on the books today, right? And the policies as they're written are exactly that. And look, I think it's really dangerous to assume that every individual police officer has the very best intent and is using the most neutral lens when they're charging or maybe profiling folks. It was just a couple short years ago that there was a New Jersey state troop. So just a moment, Daniel. It was just a few short years ago that a New Jersey state trooper, Jason Dare, he had been a state trooper for nearly 2 decades. He was fired following evidence that he had Nazi tattoos on his neck. He had a pit bull tattoo that matched the affiliation with a Pennsylvania skinhead gang. Are we supposed to assume that people like Jason Dare, who's been in the state
the police
department
do not
for
charge people
decades
for crimes nor convict them? That's a jury, and that's the attorney general.
Do you think that the criminal legal system is completely removed of any racial bias at all?
Yes, I do actually.
All right. Well, that would be another whole show. Maria, thank you for your call. We're going to get one more in here on the other side of the Hudson, and I think the other side of the issue. Ali in Hollis, Queens. You're on WNYC. Hello, Ali.
Yeah. Good morning. How's everybody? Okay. First and foremost, let me say this: that I've been in this country a mighty long time before Kennedy was president. Okay. And I came here legally. But I feel in this time that has changed, that you have more people coming into the country legally and illegally. There should be some kind of differences. If you come into this country illegally and you commit a crime, yes, you should be deported. No question about it. I mean, first of all, you came here illegally, and if you're not trying to become legal, then what are you doing? Think about it. But if you're in this country and you're trying to do something for yourself and you commit a crime in self-defense, no, I don't think you should be deported. Remember, you was trying to defend yourself from being harmed. But if you're here illegally and you're not doing anything to become legal, yes, you should be deported.
Ali, thank you very much. Amy, I guess it goes to an underlying issue here of should the country not be having more control in general over its borders? And we're talking about sanctuary city, sanctuary state, not really the border, but I think Ali probably taps into what a lot of people on that side of the issue think, which is the whole fact that there are millions of people here undocumented means that something is out of control, and a country has a right to say who immigrates legally, who doesn't, and then have that debate and set those policies.
Yeah, I mean, I think the caller and I maybe share more viewpoints in alignment with each other than we do differences. But I think the key thing to remember is that it's not that more people are coming here illegally. It's that the federal government has removed pathways that once were legal, and through this hyperfixation on border enforcement have placed even more restrictions and even tighter bottlenecks, so that ways that were once legal for generations before are actually not even possible today. And so, for this, is the caller still on the line?
No.
Okay. I know that they were saying they were here, decades before. I mean, the honest truth is that ways that used to be allowed for people in decades past are simply not around anymore. And when people say things like my parents, my grandparents, or even I came here the right way, if you were to try to navigate the same immigration system today, you'd probably find that you would be on a list for detention or deportation.
We will leave it there. Obviously, much that our guests disagree about, and many of our callers, and much that we could further, even after spending an hour, dig into the issue of sanctuary city and sanctuary state. We thank our guests, Amy Torres and Daniel Martino, for engaging. Thank you very much for giving us this hour. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
And that's Amy Torres, Executive Director of the Pro-Immigrant New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, and Daniel Martino, Fellow at the Conservative Manhattan Institute think tank. And that is 30 Issues in 30 Days, our election series, issue number 1, should New York and New Jersey be a sanctuary city and sanctuary state? Tomorrow, what I know is going to be a much mellower segment because it's going to be in an explainer format as our housing reporter David Brand explains the 3 housing-related ballot questions for voters in New York City to help you make up your mind whether you want to vote yes or no on those.